Mariah, how are you feeling today?
Very exciting week coming ahead. But so far, Monday is still a Monday, so you have to work. But this week I have a conference and I'm going to graduate finally.
Okay, all right.
So it's a very
It's from the
humbling week.
master's course that you're going to graduate?
From my bachelor's,
From your bachelor's?
yes, I haven't graduated from my bachelor's yet. I'm going to graduate from the Bachelor's of Psychology,
Yeah.
and I'm currently enrolled in my master's for public policy.
How did that work?
You decide to do two dissertations after each other. So I finished my dissertation in May from my bachelor's, and 2 months later, I decided to apply for my master's in public policy by research. I put in my research proposal,
Yes.
and I applied for my master's.
But wait, hold on. Hold on. Usually a master's is at least, even my research is at least a couple of months. Or you just needed to submit the research project.
When I had to apply, so I got my results in June.
Okay?
Then I applied for my master's immediately,
Okay. All right.
and I put in my research proposal.
All right. Quite,
So
quite ambitious.
yes, very.
How come? So first of all, how come you decided to just jump into the masters?
So basically, I've been all my life, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, everyone telling me to keep on continuing school, even if you're working.
Okay.
And every person that I was speaking to, like months before I'm going to do my exams, they were like, "So what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet." And then they tell me, "But are you going to continue studying?" And I'm like, "Most probably, because bachelor's nowadays is not enough, like to work."
And in psychology, very generic.
Exactly, like, and I was like, "Okay, I'm going to see, like, I'm going to speak to certain people who've done masters, and some of them were telling me, don't do it immediately, like right after your bachelor's, because it's going to be tiring. Then, like, there were like many people on the contrary telling me continue with the same flow so that you'll manage, like, not you get out of the vibe of getting out of school and then going back in and doing the masters, etc., etc. And since I've just done my dissertation, I was like, okay, I think I'm capable to do another research. I said,
Why not?
like, why not? And I just applied in it, kind of. So yeah,
Not kind of.
no, I'm in it.
You're in it. All right.
It's weird, but it's
I mean, it's not
and
the
it's
usual. It's not
it's
the usual
stressful.
route.
Exactly.
Um, and why social policy?
So I decided with public policy because once
Public or
public.
okay? What's the difference? It's very interesting. What is the difference between public policy and social policy?
So social policy, you're limited in the scope that you'd need to do your studies in, and social policy is more around the social aspects of it. It's quite literal. So if you want to do, for example, something on social work or even psychological wise, you can go to the route of social policy. But I wanted to do something which is public policy, which is related to the public sector, so governance and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And I'm did so my research proposal is about the um, policy framing of quality of life in Malta, and also the public perception of it. And
Okay.
I'm going to see how media frames quality of life in Malta.
Okay.
So I'm going into both the public aspect, so what the people think, and also the policy, how we frame the quality of life policies in Malta. While also still seeing the psychological element to it. So how do people see quality of life actually? And
Okay.
quality of life in Malta is quite like a buzzword that you use left and right all the time. So I want to look into what is the actual definition by the public, and how
Okay.
does the media portray that? And are our policies actually giving what the people want? Are they actually giving people the quality of life that they need?
So are you going to triangulate?
Kind of. So I need to. It's a very
So you're going to use qualitative and quantitative?
definitely. I'm not a fan of quantitative,
Yeah.
but
Neither am I.
but as long as I have something that I love to do, which are interviews and seeing what people think, which is a lengthy process, but
Yes.
I'm eager to start it.
All right, very interesting. When you say media, media, you mean media houses, or it can be as broad as social media, for example.
So I'm going to target media houses, but like, for example, let's say a media house that only has their social media platform. And then I'm going to also see newspapers. So
Okay.
both, kind of.
So, well, I'm not sure whether you're aware or you have the figures. What is the percentile that people consume newspapers to date?
In Malta, it's quite high as far as I've seen, because like I think a month ago, there was the statistics of which one has more
Yeah.
popularity. But the one of Sundays, like Sundays newspapers,
Okay.
are still very, very in Malta. And if you work in the public sector, they read the newspapers every day. They still are very keen.
Okay.
On it, apart from social media. But social media
Yeah.
obviously is taking a bit of dominance within this world that we live in. But newspapers in Malta, since we have a very small pool of media, people read everything and anything,
So it's still a reliable source.
definitely.
Okay. What drove you into this topic?
So basically, at first, so let's go a bit like step backwards,
I
like
think
really,
there's a
really.
story behind this.
It is quite a lengthy story. So
We have time.
definitely. So when I was in junior college,
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to be a nurse. I want to be a nurse. I want to continue on healthcare. But then I did not pass from biology in my first year.
Okay.
But I did not pass from biology. I was at the time I didn't admit it because I was like, no, I'm not good enough in biology A level. I'm just not good enough. But in reality, I had some emotional turmoils. My dad had just passed away 2 months before my final exams. He died from cancer. And I was like, I was not good enough when I saw the results and I saw that I did not pass by 5 marks. I was like, I'm not good enough to be a nurse. Like, I'm not going to go into healthcare. And then I was like, okay, let me see what other things I can do. And then I decided that maybe I can take the psychology route because I always liked psychology. And even in my dad spent 4 years with cancer, with his diagnosis. And I needed help because when we discovered this in 2018, I was still in secondary school. And we are a family of 5 people. We are 3 siblings and my parents. And obviously seeing your dad being such a strong person, like he wasn't the man of the house because my mother always took that role.
Okay.
But he was that person that he used to work manual work, so very manly jobs. And seeing him from going to work from every day from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m., like doing tiles and painting and all that construction work, to a person who can't work anymore. So from the man of the house, like the man that I used to, the paternal figure that I used to see, to he become a housewife, like a house husband, every day with me. And even seeing him going to chemotherapy, he used to go to chemotherapy once every 2 weeks. He had 3 days in these 2 weeks, every time going to chemotherapy. And seeing him, like from a very chubby person to such a thin guy after those 4 years, that obviously it impacted me. Like I was so young when I discovered like all this. And the fact that he helped me, my dad helped me to find help. We reached out to hospice at the time and they offered the children, so me, my sister, my brother, a psychologist.
Okay.
And I was a bit inspired by that, like when I saw that I did not pass in first year junior college. And I was like, okay, I'll put biology as intermediate and then I'll choose something else as an A level. In that case, I think I chose English and marketing, which are very different from psychology,
Yeah.
but I love literature, marketing. I was like, okay, let's try it out. I liked it as well. And then like I decided like once that I repeated the first year, I did second year junior college, second year COVID at junior college, so I spent it online. And then I went into the University of Malta in psychology bachelor's. But then I discovered, like when I was in my bachelor's, that I don't want to be a therapist. Like I'm too fiery as a person to just be a therapist. I want to be an advocate because there are not enough advocates for psychology in Malta. And when I say not enough advocates, not enough children's psychologists, not enough educational psychologists who actually, and there are many people, many psychologists who actually work in these fields, but do you ever hear about them on public TV? Do you ever hear about them in policy making or being our politicians? Barely. There are only a few people who actually go into politics. So I want to bridge the gap between people and policy, because for me there is a big gap of what people think and the actual policies. And there's the psychological element that in Malta maybe it's not much known, and I want to go into it. I want to bridge that gap and see that whatever policies that we have are actually reflecting the needs and the wants of the people.
Okay.
So that's the complex story in a short time.
It was very inspiring. Thank you,
Thank you.
for sharing that. I mean, every great move that we do in life is backed up by a good story, isn't it? And usually it's a story of pain,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. So we human are quite funny in a way, because we learn and grow through hardships. Some are harder than others, of course. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Where you stand today, what do you think is the gap between people and policy?
I think the people who are in policy have not seen certain struggles that people go through. So they are in this bubble. That sometimes it's difficult to go out of this bubble because you're always in your office working. You hear people's problems here and there if they go and open their hearts about it. But they still remain in that bubble. And if you are on the ground, you get to know more what are the people's wants and needs. Okay, there's research, but the research does not reflect the population that you live in or the society that you live in. And what better way to do that if you do not go with them and experience what they experience every day? In my life, I went to like so many turmoils and saw like so many different things that every single thing that I did built me to the person that I am today. And I've seen the struggles between policy and the society because I was part of society and that policy could not help me as a child. For example, when my dad found help for me, I was 17 years old. I needed consent in order for me to have help. And there's no law that 17-year-olds, so 17-year-olds, it's a really gray area to seek help or to do anything, unfortunately, because you're not an adult, but you're expected to be an adult.
Yeah. On certain fronts.
On certain fronts.
Well, as we're speaking, you're allowed to vote.
Exactly.
So-
But you're not allowed to see a psychologist without your parents' consent. And that thing really hurt me because if my dad couldn't, I didn't want to show my mom that I want to find help. I only showed my dad that I wanted to find
How
help.
come, if I may ask?
Because my mom was always the man of the house.
Okay.
She always like wore the big pants. She always tried to discipline us. My dad tried to discipline us, but my mom was like, she gives you a look from across the room, quiet.
Okay. So she's not in favor of therapy.
She's kind of not in favor of therapy.
Okay.
She thinks in a way like she's very old school. Like if she gives you money, that's enough support.
Okay.
But for you to go find support, you're showing weakness.
Okay.
Which nowadays she's learning to accept that support is not only like through finances, but also through finding help opportunities and so on and so forth. But for her at the time, she was like, you don't need anything. Like, you're good. Your grades are great. Um, like everything is fine. Like even when my dad had operations, we used to go to school still, even if it was a major operation. She did not like let us like stay at home. We just wait it out or anything. She just like go to school. It's everything's like normal. Like your first priority is your education. And even my aunts and uncles, they have this similar mentality, and even my dad. But when he saw me that I was like struggling a bit, he was like, "Let's find help. It's fine. We're going to find help." And I did not want to show her because I always like, so I'm the middle child. I'm the very independent person, the person that they don't need to come for me, like to pick me up for anywhere. I'm going to just get the bus, no problem. I'm going to sort out everything. I don't have food, I will cook, not an issue whatsoever. And for me, for my mom to see me that I was a bit weak for going to therapy, I did not want that because I didn't want her to worry about me that I have something wrong.
Okay.
So that's why I'd never showed her at the time. But then like I told her, like, listen, I'm just going there. No need to worry. I'm just going to see a psychologist like once every 2 weeks. And she was okay about it. Like she tried to understand. Maybe in my mind I was like, I'm going to disappoint her. But like I always tried my best to show them that I'm okay. Like it's fine. There's no need to take care of me. Take care of my sister and my brother, and I'm fine. Like I can do this. I always did it. So, but but yeah, it's difficult, but at the same time, it's once you expose them to it, to the idea of it, and I always try to show that I'm very strong as a person. So I always like put up this frontier, this wall to them that everything is fine. And then like I'm like a ticking time bomb. Then when I explode, I explode.
But it still took quite a bit of courage for you to step out of that circle and to actually seek help. And in the first place, to recognize that you need help or a different kind of support as well, because if you have been indoctrinated in a certain way, it's even hard for it might have been hard for you to even realize or to accept. So I think it shows a good level of mental fortitude as well.
I think so.
Um, so in my case, I never wanted to be a therapist as well. I'm not a therapist, and it's something not for me. Um, I do coaching nowadays, but I don't do therapy. And I am curious about the different schools of thought of therapy. And one of the main reasons why I didn't pursue therapy was that I find it difficult when I see someone who who cannot who are not in a position to help themselves, or that I'm trying to frame it in a politically correct way. um, who they give off the impression that they have given up on themselves.
Okay.
I find it very hard personally to help someone because not, I mean, even given by time. So there are times where you feel helpless and hopeless. But if you are, you remain in that position.
Like it's continuous.
If
It's
it's
like a vicious
continuous,
cycle.
I find it hard because I can support you for a while, even months. But if you remain there, I can't remain with you there throughout the entire lifetime, you know. So if some time passes by, I have to move on. Even and this comes, I think it will emerge in therapy. Most probably, I will learn how to tone it down or to accept my biases. But anyway, I think going from a point that you've mentioned, I think locally at least, and I see this globally as well. I think there has been quite a bit of awareness. And I say this all the time. I've said it in multiple podcasts. I think there has been quite a lot of awareness when it comes to psychological help and receiving help as well from therapists. I think we need to teach people how to actually use the skills in practice. So from awareness to education. I think that is the greater gap. So there are still people. So the current issue I see, at least in my practice, is that people think that if you go to a psychologist or a therapist,
They're
a
going
flip
to
of
solve
finger,
your
they're going to
problems,
solve your
no
problems.
problem.
So whereas people used to think that medicine, if you take Panadol, for example,
Mm-hmm.
your headache will go away. Okay, you don't need a head. You're not having a headache at the moment, but you're having anxiety or panic attacks. You go to a psychologist once or twice, and you're done. It's
Mm-hmm.
not as easy, and I think there is a little bit of a misconception that is emerging about therapy and what it does and what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to teach people and to educate people to be more aware of themselves, what they're feeling, why they're feeling that way, to accept themselves, to love themselves as well,
Mm-hmm.
and to do their best in being their best, which is not as easy as
It's
it
not.
and as romantic as I'm sounding
Exactly.
it to be.
But like then again, apart from okay, there's also the interventions of schools, which the interventions of schools, to be honest, I mean they're quite good to tell you to always seek help and so on and so forth. But what I'm hearing, like from my colleagues that are working in schools and so on and so forth, there's still this mentality in Malta that whatever happens at home, you need to shut up about it. You can't speak about it to the public. Like it's private. You need to keep it like at home at all costs. Like you don't tell your teacher, don't tell your friends about it because there's this level of
Secrecy.
secrecy and they try to like make you think that it's embarrassing for you to speak your emotions, your thoughts, and that you're weak. And it's still very prevalent even at people like my age, and I'm just 22. Um, and people still think in that sort of way. Like I had to convince multiple friends of mine to go to therapy. I even recommend them to different therapists. Like, listen, if you want to go for like to that person because she's really good with anxiety. Um, like many of my friends, like really battled severely academic anxiety. Like as soon as they like got into university and they got their first C, it's like the end of the world. But it is very prevalent in children and very young children that this mentality of don't say anything at school, it's still very there. So there needs to be a way, a shape or form of something that parents are educated on how counseling works, how therapy works, how psychologists and the difference between psychiatrists and psychologists. It's amazing how many times I try to explain to my family members what's the difference between psychiatry and psychology.
And that's the easiest one.
Exactly.
If you go into the therapist or counseling realm, then it's another layer of complexity.
Exactly. So it's like giving lectures every single time, a multi-layered lectures. But yes, I mean, this is the reality that we still face with in our small island state, like abroad. Honestly, when it comes to mental health, I mean, there should be declared a mental health emergency at this point in time because we have not recovered from COVID, which is another aspect.
Okay.
That
How come?
So the parenting styles in COVID changed. Um, so if you used to let your children, for example, play like in nature, play at the beach, and so on and so forth, nowadays we're turning ourselves and our children into germaphobes. That is what we're leaning into.
Okay.
So it is raising a certain amount of anxiety to children from a very young age, from the ages of like 6 months, 7 months, instilling this kind of anxiety. At the ages of 1, they have anxiety.
One.
Having anxiety at 1
Okay.
because you need to pick up, you cannot see a mess. The 1-year-old cannot see a mess. They have to pick up stuff and put them back because they've always seen their parents do that and they need to wipe them. In fact, there is this term, COVID babies.
I've heard about the term.
And it's literal. So they are turning into how we were in quarantine, cleaning and stuff, but they're mimicking the same behaviors and emotions. And this is not only in Malta, this is like in
It's a
Europe.
global phenomenon.
It is a global phenomenon that we are currently facing and seeing of how children are conditioned to be this clean. And it affects their motor skills realistically because they're not exposed, for example, to soil. And as soon as they like touch certain squishy, slimy things, they're like really, really sensitive to it. So their fine motor skills and their gross motor skills is being affected on the whole. And apart from that, for example, teenagers, like the most people who were affected were teenagers during COVID, and they're still trying to work on this their social bubbles, this anxiety, this social anxiety that I have, and certain people, like there are certain people that are passing comments recently that it's just in our brains, like we're making a big fuss out of this. But seeing friends of mine or younger people going through panic attacks because they are in the public in a crowd and they cannot like take it anymore, it's incredible. And it's not something that it's treated anxiety, like you cannot just have a pill and it's gone. It is something that you need to work on it, because it is a long process to get out of, like to go through social anxiety and anxiety in general. It's not something that you can switch on or off. And it is something that since COVID we were in quarantine all the time, like on your screens, always typing, video calls, not exposed to people, only to your bubble. You won't speak to a stranger. Like most of the time, there are certain people to speak to strangers, like on your computers, calls and so on and so forth. But you try to remain in your comfort zone as much as possible during
What is
that
the
time.
fear factor?
I don't know.
I mean, this is very interesting. I'm not that in touch with this occurrence in my encounters, let's say. What is the fear factor? Is the fear of death? Is the fear of getting ill? What are people afraid of?
Not just because of COVID. They are scared of interacting because they forgot how to interact with people. Not the fear of COVID itself.
Okay.
How we were conditioned during COVID to be on our own, only with our bubbles, only with our families, always in our rooms. Like we lost the boundary that we use our bedrooms to sleep, not to do any other activity. Like we just remain there, like spending our whole day there, away from society.
I'm smiling because I hear the adult version of that, the work from home, and most people love and enjoy.
I enjoy
working
work from home. I do so many things when I'm working from home. I still work, but if I need to do,
But the boundary there is difficult.
it is
Because you
difficult.
know when you start, when you wake up, essentially, but you don't know when you stop.
That is something that I'm struggling with currently.
And I don't blame you for struggling with that, because, as you're saying, if the bedroom has become a sign of isolation, it has become a sign of escape, or a sense of security, where home has become work.
Exactly.
So and that is why I'm not very, very fond of working from home. Now, don't get me wrong. I work a lot from home on my business, but my full-time related stuff, I do them when I'm at the office. So during COVID, I was working, and I struggled quite a bit with that. There was a whole lot trust issues as well, because people at that point, they weren't trained into having remote employees and having people essentially work from home. Now I did an office job, so sending emails, having telephone calls, something that you can easily
Do from home.
Yes, 100%, and even online meetings. So I could completely be productive while I was at home. But there was still that trust issue as well, and I don't blame the management as well, because you can't see people working, even though you can see the results, and that is something that is quantifiable as well. So working from home is good. It's very comfortable, especially with the commuting, because obviously everyone can notice the traffic situation, and that's why I drive a bike, because the traffic is real. I mean, we spent at least 2 hours if you drive a car, go by car. At least you spend 2 hours every day in traffic. 1 hour going home, 1 hour going back. So, or going to work and go home, vice versa. So those are 2 hours, where the trip could have easily taken half an hour, 45 minutes perhaps. So you're wasting, in inverted commas, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half out of your life, instead of going shopping, spending time with your kids, doing a hobby, going to the gym, and that is always putting it into tension. But I digressed a little bit. So going back to the subject and to what we were discussing before, it never dawned on me that the fear would be the social element, because we lack the skills to social interact, because we were so accustomed to isolating ourselves at home.
It is a very, very still
Right.
prevalent issue. I mean, we are getting out of it, but you still see 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 13-year-olds, even 19-year-olds going through this. And it's different and it's sad at the same time. Like I have mixed emotions when I encounter this or like listen about it or even read about it because I don't know why I love reading about the effects of COVID-19 on a social aspect.
Okay.
Um, so like even there were certain misdiagnoses that people are autistic because of this. Just because of the social element, because they do not know how to socialize or are still finding their way how to socialize with other people. So a misdiagnosis of autism,
Yeah.
it's that severe. Are we doing enough about this? Like it's a lot. It's a lot to digest.
I mean, it's very easy to point fingers at this stage because most people would say, it's because of the parents, because of that, it's because of the
Exactly.
education system. But children at a very young age, I mean, because you studied psychology as well, children do a lot of mirroring. So they mirror what they see. So it can be, and they mirror adults, and they mirror other children as well because they can absorb the um, household cultures as well, and that's something that we do absorb. Well, we were all children at one point in time, um, but it starts with the household. Perhaps that's why parents get the most blame out of all because it starts from the household. Then yes, at the educational system. Then yes, all of the other activities that the children engage with. Um, and to top that off, social anxiety and social related pressures are real because there's a lot of judgment as well.
For sure.
And this was mentioned many times because of social media as well. But
Definitely.
we are very exposed on social media.
Malta in Europe is one of the most people who uses social media. So, of course, I mean, we're so absorbed in our phones, scrolling endlessly. And even during COVID, like TikTok trends, and it's still very prevalent. I hate TikTok, I'm sorry. But
Not a big fan, but
not a big fan of TikTok at all because, like, you scroll end on end on end on end on
it's
end.
made, it's
Like,
designed
it's
to
literally
do.
designed to do
It's
that.
by design. It's impressive and
For
scary
sure.
as well.
And it's really scary
It
because
is.
like if you post a video and it does well, like it goes viral, but for a silly dance, people will actually know you for that silly dance.
Yes, you're
And
done.
and you're done. Like you're an icon, you're a meme everywhere and anywhere. And the fact that so many people can see your digital footprint and the amount of hate comments and hatred that you see in the world, like just put on a silly video of
Yes.
10 seconds. It is absolutely mesmerizing and terrifying at the same
Yes.
time. Just to see the power of the internet that's connecting you to anyone and everyone at whatever time they are in, and they're judging you. Like, who are you to judge me and you don't know me, but you're judging me because of a silly dance,
Yeah.
for example?
Yeah.
Like, and it's incredible. Like, and TikTok is impressive. Like, it's like blew up in such a very short amount of time. It was always there, but it blew up exponentially.
Yes. Now it's stabilized, I think, as a
I
platform.
don't think so.
I think it has been stable for a while now. It's still very strong. It doesn't when I mean stabilized,
Okay.
it didn't lower its engagement, but it's not going upward in an upward stream as fast as it used to be 2 years ago, for example. So now it's stabilized and it's remaining in a constant speed. But going back to policy, um, how can what can policy do so for the listeners and viewers to understand the connection between all of this because there is a lot being said about social media and its dangers and how harmful it can be to anyone because both children and adults can fall into this trap. How can policy help?
So let's take it. Like, let's look at our political realm in Malta. Um, so how we do certain policies are mostly driven by the economic factor rather than illnesses, rather than other statistics which are psychological statistics, let's put it in that time. So we are only weighing certain elements within policy when it comes to wages, when it comes to benefits, incentives. We're just like throwing money to the problem. And if you have like decent policies with social impact assessments, which they are working on, for example, regional councils are working on social impact assessments. It started within a region in Malta, and now it's going to be replicated in all regions of Malta, which is absolutely amazing. If social impact assessments are conducted on certain policies, let's say for disabilities, for people who need certain specific policies, like so that they can like literally live their lives, you need to do a social impact assessment. How are you going to quantify or see actually their quality of life if you do not actually do a social impact assessment? For example, within Europe, they are working on something called the EU Youth Test, which is every policy, whether it's economic, environment related, whatever it is first passed towards the youth, where youths see how this policy affects them and they give their input of what they think.
Numerical or a sentiment kind of feedback?
Either numerical or sentiment.
Okay.
They're doing it like a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
And they're first trying it, not the European Parliament per se, it is a branch of the European Parliament, it is the European Economic Social Committee, who are trying this EU Youth Test before going into Parliament. They provide these policies to youths and they give feedback on it.
Okay.
And they're doing it, for example, there's a committee with youth organizations from all around Europe where they give their feedback on the policy and backed up by research.
Okay.
And then they are doing, for example, certain surveys that we see by the EU. It is to conduct, obviously, the policies. So that's being done for youths. In Croatia, they are doing child-proofing.
What's that?
Child-proofing, yes. It is like placemaking. Have you ever heard about placemaking? No. So there's placemaking. They do activities, which, let's say, you want to build a green open space, okay? Let's go to that context. And you want to see what children want in that green open space to create a playground, whatever. You do certain activities which are targeted to the age demographic that you have. For example, if you have toddlers to 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds maybe, you do the sensory box, a box filled with soil, and you put in some figurines, and they design their ideal green open space, how they envision it. You give them everything. You can give them a lake, you can give them a pond, you can give them multiple trees, multiple shrubs, and they just place it. It's play. So and you are learning from them because you are seeing them playing and how they see that green open space in their eyes.
Okay.
So they are doing that, but with policies. So they create activities. Maybe it's just drawing. Maybe it's just asking them a question and they say one word. And you get that data, you study that data, and you see how it can apply to that policy, which is a very interesting approach, innovative. It takes time.
It does take a lot of time because you need to
It's a very
decipher the
lengthy
information.
process. But it is something that's being done. That is what we lack. Like, okay, dialogue, public consultations are extremely important, but you need to know how to market that consultation. You need to market how that directive will affect me. Like if there's a directive of anything, let's say a financial one, I don't know anything about finances. Like, thank God I have a bank account, and that's all till there, nothing else. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how it will affect me. So if there is this gap, it is literally a big gap. If there's someone to bridge it, wouldn't that be better to better understand people from any social class they come from, any background, any age, how it will affect them? Everyone has rights. But how does everyone have rights, but they don't know how certain policies affect those rights. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to achieve in my life. So that I'm just a nerd. I just read. So I know what's going on, basically, because I was always like that. But certain people, they don't know what's going on in their life, like around them, how that policy will affect them, not maybe now, but in the long time. And then don't come complaining that like you didn't know about that. But then again, you are not educated enough to notice that at the same time. So it's like a dual thing.
Yeah.
Either you're educated or else you're not. But how are you not educated about certain subjects?
Yeah.
I know it's confusing, but I don't.
No.
Hopefully, you got the line of thought.
I will make it very digestible for the listeners
Okay.
and viewers as well, where they can find the policy or certain policies, at least locally in Malta, where can these be found?
You'd have to search online, or else if they don't do an advert or something, you won't know about it.
Yes, but which website?
There are
Literally-
multiple websites. Like there's no
Okay.
one portal that just shows you all the policies.
So
in
there's no
Malta.
one-stop shop?
No.
No. Why?
I mean,
So let's say, what is the most popular policy that on the top of your head, which is the most policy that people should look out for?
I can't answer that question because it depends on what you like and what you don't like and what you're going through. For example, let's look at IVF laws in Malta.
Okay, I picked one, which is
Like very if you look at IVF in Malta, like if you are over a certain age, you can do
Okay.
IVF in Malta,
Alright.
but there are certain treatments and certain if you're in a certain category, you cannot do it in Malta because Malta does not have the infrastructure and the whatever they need, the application
Yeah.
to do it. So you need to go abroad. But when do you know that? When you go in for the appointments and then discover that that is not available or that it's not applicable for you. So why do you have to go to abroad to perform, to have something done when you can do it at home? But you did not do it at home because unfortunately, that person who created the policy, that person who put out that legislation, those rules, regulations, they maybe did not know or did not factor it in because they thought that it won't affect them. You thought that that policy was enough, but in reality, it's not enough.
not.
And then again, you might ask the question, but how can we be so inclusive? Like everyone has different needs and different wants and so on and so forth. But that's why we need to have a broader approach on things because we're a small island with a lot of inclusivity needs that we're not actually implementing them.
Is it because of a lack of policy, or is it because the policy is error 404, which cannot be found basically?
I think just because we're not educated enough and we're in this bubble. The policymakers are in this bubble, the politicians are in this bubble, and the society, it's in this bubble. And we just, as soon as we have an incentive, like we just close our mouths. It doesn't affect me, like why should it affect others? Like, I don't care.
But why are the makers creating policies in the first place if they are not seen, read, or heard of?
You have to go through something in order to touch with policy. And that is an issue.
It is a bit.
It is.
It is an issue because, I mean, I get it. You understand how things work once you go through it.
Exactly.
So that's something. It occurs in every situation.
For sure.
So if you want to learn how to do woodworking, for example, you have to go through it. You can understand the theory of it, but you have to do things in order to learn. What I'm struggling with is that why is it so hard to find these policies? So why is it so hard for people to look out for these policies? Because the system is as good as its administrators or how it is administered. So there needs to be the infrastructure that can cater for such a thing. So then I would question, okay, who's paying the policymakers? Because the policymakers are doing a good job. They're doing the research and they're constructing the policy. But if this policy is not to be found, it's like an escape room of sorts.
It's not easily accessible like as we want it to be, and maybe that is something that we should work on. But it is not only like Malta's problem; it is like the whole world's problem,
No, yes,
the
yes,
whole
yes.
European
Yes, yes.
Union, and like far from it, America, everyone's problem. It's how
Policies are boring.
exactly
That's
they
why.
are very boring.
That's the problem. Policies are boring, and you expect someone to tell you what you need to do.
Exactly.
And we want the easy way out.
Exactly.
So, my argument is not that the policymakers are to blame or that there's
No, no,
something
not
wrong.
at all.
It's a collective because you mentioned three spheres: the policymakers, the state, and society. They all play a role in this dysfunctional kind of relationship of
And then
sorts.
you have stakeholders on their own,
Of
so they
course.
like you go into so many bubbles.
Yes.
And then you need to create one policy that encapsulates everyone. Like
Yeah.
it's impossible. But then again, you need to try to make your policies as inclusive as possible. But
Yeah.
if you're not exposed to society or to certain realms within society, certain social aspects, how are you going to make it as inclusive as possible? You cannot do just one thing that encapsulates everyone.
It is quite a scary problem because not only the policies are not found, but the people suffering the most are the people who need them the most. And the people who need them the most probably, or this is an overarching statement, the people who need them the most might struggle with understanding the policy or what is being asked from them or what they can do or what they cannot do. So it's a bit of a bigger problem than it
It
seems.
is.
So the policy not only needs to be available, but also needs to be easily understood. This is like reading a contract, right? There are many ways of designing contracts or to write a contract. For me, at least, a contract should be written in a way that it holds all the legal implications and protects the stakeholders involved, but at the same time, it's legible. And sometimes even the Maltese language is so complex when it's
So
written in legal
complex.
terms that you wouldn't understand even your own language. It's very funny, but it's true.
It's really, really true. Like when I have a contract, I told them like, please print it in English because like, if I don't know a word, I'm going to ask like someone like, but what is this word?
It's
Or what is-
intimidating. The Maltese language. No, I'm not too shabby in Maltese, but and I grew up in a Maltese-speaking family. But the formal Maltese is very intimidating to look at. So I still prefer. So, for example, the car theory test, right? I did it in English because
Okay.
it's easier. It's easier to do. Wait, I work like carreggiata. What does it
No,
even
for
mean?
sure. Imagine doing biology in Maltese. Imagine.
Was it in Maltese biology?
No, but imagine doing like
No,
biology in
no, for
Maltese.
sure.
Like you can't.
No.
For me, same as contracts. Like I need it in English because unfortunately, like, and I'm not bad in Maltese. Like we were born and raised in a
Yeah.
Maltese household, very Maltese. Even though I used to see like Disney Channel non-stop, and the first language that I spoke was actually English. Like because at the time, like we had just got the TV. I was like watching television all the time. So, but still, like very Maltese. My dad Maltese. My mom speaks in Maltese. My sister speaks in Maltese. And like we used to live in the streets where my dad's cousins, his aunt, like his siblings used to live there. If you cross the street, there's his other sibling.
Okay,
like a
alright.
very big traditional family. And then you don't know Maltese. Like
There's something wrong.
exactly.
But this is very true. I mean, language is even your own language might get in your way as well.
For sure.
And no, English. I mean, it for certain Maltese people, myself included, I was so I still prefer to express myself in Maltese. But by time I got used to hearing my own voice and speaking English, so it took me a number of years to get myself used to hearing my voice in English. But anyway, but English in general, it's simpler as a language when compared to Maltese. So in general, even the vocabulary wise, I would say, I think it can be simplified.
Definitely.
It can be very much
If
simplified.
it's legalese in Maltese, I mean, it's very difficult, but if it's a simple Maltese, okay.
Yeah.
It depends on the jargon.
Yeah. So if you're working on a policy, we'll do it for sure in English.
For sure, definitely. Even with the spelling mistakes, because like Maltese language is always, it's a developing language
Yeah.
that like the ein changes, the akka changes, and so, and I don't want to go into that further because it's always changing. Like even since we're being exposed so much in English, certain English words are turning into Maltese. Like
Yeah.
how we write football in Maltese, it's really weird. Really weird. And like imagine that, but it's continuing developing like through the English influence. So might as well I write it in English.
Definitely.
I write it really well. Then I get a translator. Listen, can you translate this for me? And I'll stop there.
That's what friends are for.
Exactly. For sure.
Well, your work at the National Youth Council, how does it line up with your passion and with your life aspirations?
Well, the National Youth Council, it is the opportunity to be in it was such a really quick and like one after the other because I'm a very active person. So like from a very young age, I used to practice sports. I used to go gymnastics, then badminton, then basketball, then karate for a really long time,
Okay.
self-defense.
All right.
Then at school, like I started like liking arts, but I really liked art activism. Like I remember chogging when I was in secondary, where I had to create. There was the chogum in Malta, and I had to create a project for the chogum, an art project, and it was an art activism project about something about children's rights. I know that I did paper mache dolls of children and met so many like young children like from all across like whoever is involved in chogum and so on and so forth, and like I really liked it. So okay, arts with a bit of activism, like okay. Then I started drawing, for example. If there is something political going on in the political climate, I used to like draw a person and the emotions of the person. Like it was like realistic art. But for example, I would like draw the face, and then the brain would be, for example, let's say flowers, because there's something environmentally going on, and I used to like draw those kind of
Okay.
art. Then I was involved in the local youth council of my locality where I used to live in. And we were all girls, like 9 girls. Um, and I really liked, like, I was like 13 at the time. And I was the secretary general. I used to write the minutes. We had to create this project, and we had to apply for funds for this project, and it was about breaking stereotypes.
Okay.
And I was like, this is really interesting. I was doing activism without knowing that it is actually like activism. And I was doing democracy at the age of 13. I was so interested, so invested. Don't tell me how or why I was invested. Just
What draw you in?
I don't
It's a very
helping
adult
people.
topic.
Helping people.
Okay.
Because like it was
Oh,
literally
I like helping people, but I don't enjoy the topic.
I really enjoyed it at the time. Like our project was breaking the stereotypes, like hashtag breaking the
It's
stereotypes.
very empowering from what I'm hearing. It gives you a sense of
Exactly, like
hey,
a
we're
sense
doing
of
something.
belonging. I want to do something. I don't know why I was like born this way in the sense that we are 3 siblings. I'm the middle child. My sister does not like this stuff at all. Like she's just a doctor.
She's
A
just a doctor.
Not just a doctor. If she's going to hear this, she's going to get mad at me. She's a really brilliant doctor. She's in her second year.
You're trying to compensate for
Yes. And my brother, he's 19. Like, he loves playing on his computer. He loves music.
that. All right.
And then me. From where did I come from? Why am I like this? It is a question that I ask myself a lot. Like, if I had to like retrace my steps, why I like this so much. But I think it's because of the family that I grew up in. Like, genuinely, I think that the most thing, like if I had to label something or pinpoint something that affected me the most is my family. Because and not like my immediate family, like my family as a whole, we're a really
Dynamic.
big family. from my dad's side, we're 21. We're 21 cousins.
Oh.
And from my mom's side, they're a very small family. Like, I have 10 cousins from that side, like, so relatively small.
Still large.
It's still large, but it's relatively small for me, for my experience. And like everyone had their different struggles. And for example, what I remember most, like, so my dad, they are 8 siblings. Like
Okay.
so my dad had 7 siblings.
Okay.
And they all like so all of my aunts are married, but my uncles, not all of them are married. So I saw certain, they all have this different lifestyle. So most of them are with families, but 2 of them never got married. But even though, like, all my uncles and my dad always used to work in construction, always used to work in fields, like in agriculture and construction.
Okay.
So I always saw them with manual work. And I remember the time where my mom and dad, they could not like, if I wanted this doll, they used to tell me, like, listen, we have to wait a bit. We need to, like, put this on
Save
hold
up,
so
yeah.
that we can save up for certain things. For example, till the age of 16, I never went abroad. I always stayed within Malta and GROWTHSchema because we never afforded to go abroad. And when we started to get, like, afford to go abroad, my dad, like, got sick. And even, like, for example, my brother, he has autism. He's on the spectrum of autism. So I saw, like, so many things at a young age. Him getting specialized treatment, going to specialized programs. At the same time, me and my sister are practicing sports. At the same time, I've seen certain struggles from my cousins or my uncles and aunts in their personal lives as well, let alone like our life, because we always, like, seen a struggle.
Yeah.
Because we were always, we weren't even, like, working class, because we were, I feel that we were at the bottom of the food chain, like in the beginning of my life. But we always made it through. We always had fun. We always, they always tried their best to provide for us. Even when we got our first computer at home, we used to share. We used to, like, have our time zones, like when
Yeah.
you can use your the computer and so on and so
I
forth.
remember the time.
And even my dad did not know how to speak English. We had to teach him English, but he used to know maths. Then he used to help me with maths, not an issue. But my mom came from Australia. Like, she came to Malta at the age of 13, I think.
Okay.
She always struggled. She used to work at a farm at the age of 13. Always. So I always saw this manual labor. I always saw the lack of education. Wherever I go, whether it's my nana, whether it's my grandma, my grandpa, uncles, aunts, study so that you're better than me. Study, study, study. You have a sore throat. It's fine. You can still go to school. Go to school. Like, that's how much they pushed me to go to school. Not me only. Like, all of my cousins are all, I think, very educational driven. And they always strived for us to be the best people that we can be in terms of education. Not in terms of work, no. But for example, my dad didn't want me to go work at the age of 16. But I still went to work. I still decided to work. So while I was studying full time, I used to work part time as a salesperson. And then I ended up, like, I changed my job. I worked for 4 years at a company, and then but I always worked. Summer, winter, whatever the season is, I always work, and I barely take leave at the time.
At the time.
At the time.
Now.
Now we are taking.
You're planning your sick leave as well now.
No, not for now. No, I'm joking. Just I always, like, I was always built in this family to be a hard worker, because I've always seen hard workers. So I was always raised to be a hard worker. And we are a family that came from nothing. We are still nothing. But I decided that I want to, like, always seek something which is bigger, which is greater. And that's what happened, like, with my activism. First, I started with sports. Then I liked arts. Then I started at my local youth council. Then I was in some student organization. And then, like, I was approached by the National Youth Council. It would be good to join for this. And I'm like, sure, why not? What am I going to lose? Nothing. And I I got in 4 years ago. I was elected. And I've been there for 4 years.
All right. How long is the term?
So my term as president, 2 years. So I'm
2
going
years.
to end in March of 2025.
Okay. And then most probably you can't be re-elected.
No.
since
And
that 2
I'm
years.
not looking into being re-elected because I want like other people to
Yeah.
have the opportunities.
For sure.
Plus, I'm getting a bit like burnt out from the activism life. And working full time, juggling a master's and being in a voluntary organization, not getting paid. It is a real toll
I know.
on your lifestyle. So take your mental breaks.
It is. It's quite
And
needed.
you need boundaries for sure, but it's something that I have a passion for and I don't mind doing, even though sometimes I really nag to my friends on it because I'm overloaded with work. But then again, I don't know how to take a break because I was always like really, really active from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mariah, from what I'm hearing as well, apart from being indoctrinated to be a hard worker as well, I'm also seeing the element that you feel obliged to your family as well because they have put so much trust, so much effort, so much dedication,
For
so much
sure.
suffering in you that you feel sort of like responsible that you need to give something back.
every 1
them.
cent that they gave into my life, I want them to say, "Oh my God, we have like she did so well."
There's a
like,
return on investment.
there's a return. You see, like I want to make them proud, and I want to advocate like what they lacked in their early life. Now I want to advocate for people's rights. I want to advocate for children's rights, for youth rights, because I've seen so many people and I've been through so much that I want to advocate for the small person, for the person that does not feel comfortable or doesn't know where to voice their opinion. I want to be that person that I really wanted someone else to be at that young age. And I want my parents and my uncles, like my uncles and my aunts are my supporters, they're my fans. Every time that I go on TV, you were on TV, you did so well, or else, Ma, you could have spoken a bit better. I know that you can do better. They
Okay.
expect so much
All right.
from me.
How
And-
does that make you feel?
When they give me criticism or
In
when they
general,
praise me.
because in general, because you have a you need to there's a I'm looking the English term here. There's this void to fill. There is this sense of need to
There's
be
no
bigger.
void to
Okay.
fill. There's not a void. There's always something to look forward to.
Okay.
I've already like did so much. I've already studied so much. So anything that I do academic, like in my career, which is outside of academics, they always look at me in awe,
Okay.
even though they provide constructive criticism or sometimes really harsh criticism. Like they do it for my own good
Yes,
because
yes.
they know that I can be something bigger. But where I am already, I'm already enough for them. Just I am the person that I think wants to continue like leveling up because I know that I can be better. I know that I can reach that milestone. Like I know it. Maybe they know it, but they don't tell me that's like I can be better, I can advance more in my career. But when they know, for example, that I can speak better than
Yeah.
what I've spoken in X program, they will tell me. They will tell me for my own good, but they tell me like in such a proud voice, like you were on TV, but now that we're speaking, you could have said something else. That's how they speak to me, and I really appreciate that. I don't communicate as much as with them when I go on TV programs, podcasts, and so on and so forth, because I get embarrassed because they don't know me like this. Like at home, like when we're just a family, I'm just this silly, clumsy person, and then you see me on TV, how serious I am. Like it's like there's this gap from this clumsy small person that's used to draw on walls and ruin every kind of furniture to this person who wears these blazers, who wears some makeup and like speaks so seriously and people take her seriously. Like there's this divide, and the fact that they see that part of me on like in public, for them it's such a big thing because no one in my family is like like this so far, because I'm like, again,
You're the first. At least you're the first one. You
but
can- you
I'm a
can bring it
nerd.
home.
But I feel like a nerd sometimes, and I feel like I'm everywhere, and I'm a bit too much maybe. But that's I have this confidence, I have this voice, and I know that I can do good. I'm trying to be very positive about it, because sometimes there are days that, and you receive so many critics from people, like people that don't know you, and they comment, like say certain comments about family or about yourself, like they'd be so mean, and they really hurt my, not that I have a big of an ego, because I don't, but they hurt me, like they really affect me, and I read each and every single comment that people write about me, even though I act that I don't care, and people most of the time see me as happy-go-lucky all the time, but they really affect me. And the fact that people can be so mean for a person who's just like learning. We're just learning and trying it out. We're not even like practicing before. We're just going for it. Like, if I don't go for that opportunity, like I would miss out. But the fact that I have lack of experience, it is a learning curve for me. I'm seeing every opportunity as something that I can learn from. And I learn from other people and so on and so forth. But the fact that people say certain stuff about me and it's not true, like just to hurt yours, like I don't know why people do
They try
that.
to burst your bubble.
I think like they try and they get to me, and the fact that they get to me,
It pisses you even more.
exactly. So I'm trying to build like the skin and so on and so forth, but the fact that I'm like already making my family so proud, and again, I'm not filling any voids. The fact that voids is a negative connotation, and it is not something that's it's empty and I need to fill it. It is something that I'm upskilling to do rather than just filling it in. At least that's what my 2 cents about it.
No, fair comment. What I meant to say is that sometimes too much of a good thing can be harmful as well. And we need to be cautious about it. And I'm not the one to judge as well, because I'm involved in a lot of things as well. So I can see myself in what you're saying in a lot of different ways. So I understand and I encourage you to do so. So even though, yes, to take breaks, to take calculated breaks and to do rest, but at the same time, if you enjoy what you're doing, if it gives you pleasure, it gives you happiness,
For sure.
do it. And it's the learning and the person that you've become during the journey. I know there's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. And sometimes you start off at one point and then you end up in a totally different place.
For sure.
And you can see yourself change in a lot of different ways. And sometimes you have to say, sometimes you need to let go of certain friendships. For example, you might need to let go of certain workplaces just because you've changed. And because that place, that person, that group of people is not fulfilling you anymore, because you are from a very humble position, you outgrew that position. It would feel like that you parted ways, and they would still remember your old self, when in reality you'd have matured and learned. Because going back to a bit of something that we've said at the beginning, every experience shapes us, especially the most difficult ones. And through those, we change. And because we need to adapt. We need to adapt because we need to survive as well.
I mean, the basics of survival at this point.
No, it is like that. And you might enjoy the thrill of that. You might enjoy the learning aspect of it. But as long as it gives you joy.
And it's really important, like the people that you surround yourselves with. Like, for example, I've been through many friends groups, and not everyone is on your level in the sense that maybe they're not as supportive as you want them to be.
Yeah.
And you need to always surround yourself with people who accept you for who you are. But then again, when you get into your comfort zone, they try to push you. Like, I want to surround myself with people who motivate each other so that we can be the best versions that we are of ourselves, and that we can be, and that we can develop to be. And the fact that like I have a really steady like friend group at the moment, and we push each other so much, even like to the point where I get offended sometimes. Like they tell me like, Ma, you can't do that. I'm like, no. And they're like, you're so lazy, like do it. You can do actually like you can do it. But that is like We have this mean streak, which it's banter all the time, but whenever I need them, I know that I have them there. But those are the people that I want around me. Those are not fake people, for example, that they just cheer you on in public and then in private they tell you, you did that again. Like, you always need people who will help you grow and who are not afraid to tell you, like, listen, you can do better, or listen, like, you need to take a break, or hear you out, or like. So I'm really grateful for it. But there was a time where, like, when you are a group of girls or in a girls' school, most especially in
I
secondary,
wouldn't know.
I know. But boys can be mean as well.
For sure.
For sure. But girls can be
In a
really.
different way.
Exactly.
I mean,
Really mean. And that's really, in secondary, it's really affected my confidence. Like, girls in secondary are another breed. For sure. Not that boys aren't, but.
we behave differently. It's a different kind of challenge. It might be equally as challenging, but it's a different kind of behavior manifestation.
Yep.
Going back to a point, another point that you've mentioned is the social aspect of things, and how important is it to evaluate the people who surround you and to the people who uplift you as well. And sometimes it is a process of choosing the right people. Not sometimes, I would say. I would correct
Most
myself.
of the times.
It is a process. And it's a process because even if you have a friend or in your relationship, I mean, any social interaction will teach you a lot about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you can tolerate, what you don't want to tolerate, what you accept, what you don't want to accept. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your blind spots? There is a lot of learning involved. And that is what I meant when I said that we need to teach people, we need to educate people on how to make sense of this. Because because there's a certain level of humility that goes with it, that, okay, what is this person teaching me about myself? And sometimes asking the right questions to us. And okay, and how am I interpreting this? How am I positioning myself to this emotionally, perhaps mentally? And then we start selecting people. The more we do it, the better we become at selecting the right people. But it's definitely a process. There is definitely a lot of pain involved in it because you will get hurt.
For sure.
It is a process. And some people hurt you voluntarily and involuntarily as well, because it's the way we rub off on each other. It might be just us or just them, that there's no chemistry between us, and it's just because it's them that we feel hurt, just because they. So let me make it a little bit tangible. Maltese people have a tendency to be loud, to shout. And some people might be offended by that. Some people might not tolerate someone being loud to them because it feels that they are being yelled at. And sometimes just because it's them, but we feel offended because of that, or we might not like their company because they behave in that kind of way. They manifest their concern, it might be concern, it can be or anger or disappointment in that sort of way, but we get offended because we interpret it in a different way. So sometimes just because either we were not ready, we're not in a position, we don't want to interact with that kind of person. So it's a process. It's a process of learning about yourself. But you have to be very courageous as well.
For sure. Like, you can't be too timid. Like, you need to, like, take that step to get out of that comfort. Because once you're in that comfort, it's really difficult to go out of that comfort. And it's another process of its own.
Yes.
So
this is a phrase that I'm using quite often in the past weeks. The easiest option might not always the best option. So if you're
very
afraid, very
cliche.
cliche, but it's very true, and I'll explain it in this context. Even if you're avoiding social interactions, even if it's easy, it might not be the best option, because you might think that it's benefiting you, but it might also be causing you harm at the same time, because it makes you feel perhaps isolated, lonely, and even more afraid. Because if you're fueling that fear, you become even more afraid. And I wouldn't say, oh, go on a stage and start drama, for example, but at least try to find mini opportunities that you can, hey, to say good morning, and run. At least the small things you can stay aside. Okay, thank you to the person who served you the smoothie, for example. Thank you, good morning. Even those small interactions will build up by time. So start small. It will take a couple of years. Personal growth and development takes years. And it's a lifetime journey, I would say.
For sure, definitely agreed, 100%. Like I can see it, like for example, I have my cousins who are like very much older than me, very much older. I'm saying like 30s, 40s, some of them almost 50 now.
They are
So
a bit older than
they
you.
are a bit older. They are a bit older, especially like the older ones, of course. And like you see them like first they're just youths, they are young people, then they become parents, and then like they change again, and then like their children like grow up, and they change again. And the fact like there are so many changes, and you change so much during your life because you need to adapt to any kind of situation and every kind of situation. It is something like very wholesome. Like the fact like you come to a point where, wow, I've come so far. I was so different back then, and even like like that nostalgia when you were like looking through photos, like damn, I was so like, for example, like not courageous at that time, and now I don't care.
You will
Like
encounter this quite frequently now moving forward.
yeah, definitely for sure. But it is like life. If you had like to envision life, it is all about circles and about like the circular paths and
Yes, yes. I can see the martial artist in you because
exactly.
martial arts moves a lot in circles.
Funny.
Mariah, we're arriving at the very end of our episode, so I didn't advise you of this, but I have a bit of a tradition. So I have this bowl.
Okay.
I will ask you to pick one.
Okay.
It's a personal growth rated question.
Mm-hmm.
Read it out loud and answer it as well.
This question: how do you define your core values and how do they guide your decisions? If I did not like respond to this question within this podcast,
I think you went spearheaded
I
the
think so.
answer.
Core values: strength for sure, kindness. You have to be kind to everyone and anyone because you don't know what they're going through. Um, and I think open-mindedness. Like if you're not like if you do not encounter that opportunity with an open mind, like you cannot move forward in your life, you cannot experience certain experiences, you cannot go for certain opportunities. So and how do they guide your decisions? I mean, if they weren't for those decisions, I think I wouldn't be here today. I would be maybe like a person that's is just behind a desk, like doing an office job, I think. Or nothing at all. Like, I could have decided to not do anything with my life. And I had all the reason to, but I think, and even like, for example, people tell you don't be too kind because people will hurt you. They hurt, like, everyone will hurt, even if you're not too kind. But the fact that you're kind, you are more in touch with your emotions and what other people feel as well. So,
Thank you for still answering the question and summarizing the what we've been discussing. I didn't. So as you know, this is a bit of a free spirit kind of conversation, and I didn't anticipate certain angles that we took. And I've certainly learned a lot from this episode because I'm not very into your world, basically. So and for many reasons. So thank you for sharing your experience and from broadening my understanding and knowledge on the subject.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.